Thank you very much. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me for the Sunil Memorial Lecture. It's indeed an honor and a pleasure. I think all of us agree that these are very challenging times for our democracy. And there are many challenges: money power, criminalization of politics, the manner in which the media has been completely taken over by a few, the kind of coverage that is given to the challenges that we are facing is also unprecedented. But I think one of the biggest challenges that our electoral democracy is facing is that the very institution that was mandated to hold free and fair elections, that was mandated by the constitution of our country to hold free and fair elections, is itself looking more compromised than it has ever looked in the history of independent India. And we are seeing repeatedly how, whether it is the SIR exercise, which started in Bihar and of course is now being it's starting in other parts of the country, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, other places, the manner in which it has unfolded, or it is the elections, the manner in which complaints are being dealt with by the Election Commission, all of it are very, very concerning for a democracy like ours.
Thank you. I just wanted to add a couple of things because the questions are so interesting. First, on the political parties, and Mr. Lavasa, you mentioned that political parties in a democracy have to be accountable. Finally, they are very important players in our electoral democracy. And it is true that the manner in which political parties have refused to submit themselves to the Right to Information Act is very telling. In 2013, the Central Information Commission had ruled that the 6 national political parties will be covered under the RTI law, and people will be able to ask them questions not just about their accounts but also about how they are functioning. We've heard about civil disobedience. They're sitting in uncivil disobedience. They have not complied with the law, with the order of the CIC. There is no stay on the order. They're just not complying. And I think it's very worrying because we need political parties in opposition to also, in power, but also those in opposition, to take that moral stand. It's very important. It's more important today than it has ever been before. The FCRA question, both the Congress and the BJP were found by the courts to be in violation of the FCRA law. What did they do? They went and changed the law. So that, it's like somebody goes and commits a murder, and then because I can change the law, I will say, no, it's not a crime anymore. That is what we are seeing is happening. The electoral bond scheme was brought in so blatantly. And everybody, all political parties knew what the problem was. With the honorable exception, Comrade Raja is sitting here, with the honorable exception of the 2 left parties, I think there was no political party which said we will not take electoral bonds. So where does that leave us? And I think as the electorate, that is also a very big problem. And we really do hope that political parties sort of understand the credibility crisis today is very deep and very widespread. So we talked about the referee, but we also need to talk about political parties and across the spectrum. Ma'am, you talked about the disillusionment with the Supreme Court, and I think there have been many, many judgments where we have had to feel very disappointed. The electoral bonds matter, of course, was a landmark judgment, brilliant judgment, upholding people's right to information, but it took 7 years for the court to pass that, to give that judgment. By that time, 2 general elections, and all the elections in the states had happened, and political parties that took electoral bonds had filled their coffers. In the Maharashtra case, you talked about that the Election Commission of India, how the appointment will be made, the Supreme Court gave such a stellar judgment that you will have to have a balanced selection committee to select the referees. One team cannot select the referee and you can't hope to have a fair election then. The government brings in a law to completely violate the spirit that you talked about of the Supreme Court judgment. The letter also. And the matter was agitated in the court again to say, please uphold your judgment. The court is not finding the time to hear that matter. So I think the institutional compromise and collapse that we are observing is not limited to the Election Commission. The Supreme Court, the judiciary, we are also seeing are not playing the role that we expect in a democratic republic. I mean, how are we to ensure that democracy survives if those very institutions you were reading from how democracies die, the guardrails, if they're not going to function, how will it survive? But I think we must not go away from here losing hope and in disillusionment, because I think the most important part of resistance is to not lose hope. We cannot sort of give up. In a democracy, if citizens give up, then we really have no hope. And that is something that's up to us. So we need to keep asking questions, demanding accountability, and not letting those who are supposed to be accountable to us get away without being accountable. Yes, Mr. Lavasa.
तो आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि सेंसस में जो 21 साल से या 18 साल से ऊपर हैं वो ऑटोमेटिकली वोटर भी क्यों नहीं बनते? Yes, if there is a change in law, there are, by the way, some countries in which Election Commission itself is entitled to give a card which is treated as a citizenship card also, for all practical purposes. That is not the case in India. But interestingly, let me share with you that when the first electoral roll was prepared in 1950-51, census had not taken place. And if you read the debates of the Constituent Assembly, Dr. Ambedkar at one point in one of the paragraphs, he mentions that there could be 16.5 crore voters when the elections first take place in India. उन्होंने एक ये एग्जैक्ट, बिकॉज वो उसके अंदर कुछ इस किस्म की बात हो रही थी कि इसका इलेक्टरल रोल अगर एक पेज पे 40 लोगों का नाम छपे तो वो पता नहीं कितने मीलों तक रोल चलाएगा, इस किस्म की कोई बात थी. तो उस संदर्भ में उन्होंने ये कहा था कि दे एंटिसिपेट 16.5 crore वोटर्स टू बी एनरोल्ड. When India became free, our population was about 33 crores or so. So when the first electoral roll was made, and I think all of us know the effort made by the Election Commission, particularly the CEC, who went to almost all the states to ensure that electoral rolls are properly prepared, and he did not agree to conduct the elections in spite of the fact that Prime Minister made an announcement in the Parliament that elections will be soon held. But he wanted to satisfy himself about the sanctity of the electoral roll. The point which I am making is that when the census figures were eventually released, I think in 53 probably, they found that the electoral roll, the first electoral roll, had 17.6 or some crore electors. Whereas the adult population which came out from the census was 18 crores and a few lakhs. The gap was only 60 to 67 or 70 lakhs probably. So it showed the diligence with which the electoral machinery went from place to place, door to door, and tried to enroll so many people, thereby achieving, even in those days, the EP ratio of about 96-97%. I think the point is the same, that just as census operation is conducted by the government machinery approaching the people and including them in the census, the approach of ECI was similar, that it is our duty that we will ensure that everybody is included. The point, and I'm stretching it a bit, the right to vote is a constitutional right. Constitution has given it to us. So if you are born in India, it's your birthright. If I am born in India, I don't go to a school. I don't have any property. I don't have any document to show that I am an Indian. Will I not be given my voting right? And the procedure which was followed in the SIR, actually, if you turn it on its head, it could be possible that a person who was enrolled as an elector in 1951 in the first electoral roll, that time he was 21, today he would be 95 years old. And if he had continued to be an elector throughout all these 74 years, but this time, if you did not submit that form, your name is out. How fair is that?
Yeah, Mr. Lavasa, I would like you to respond to the questions Ms. Anjali had raised. My own response is that unless there's mass public agitation, we will never achieve our desired goal.
मेरा सवाल अभी एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ से है। जो हमारा एग्जिस्टिंग एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ है उसमें जब कोई भी इलेक्टेड मेंबर होता है, एमपी चाहे एमएलए, जब वो डिफेक्ट करता है तो उसकी सदस्यता चली जाती है और दोबारा इलेक्ट होकर आ जाता है। क्या कोई कूल ऑफ पीरियड नहीं होना चाहिए कम से कम 5 साल का, ताकि डरे वो?
Any other questions? We can take one more question.
ऐसा है कि अंजलि, हम लोग इलेक्शन में क्या क्या कुछ हो रहा है वो अब सारी पब्लिक भी जानती है, हम भी जानते हैं। और अब एक डिसइल्यूजनमेंट की स्थिति ये आ गई है कि जब महाराष्ट्र इलेक्शन हुआ और हमें लगा कि धांधली से सरकार बदली गई, तो हमें बड़ी उम्मीद थी सुप्रीम कोर्ट से कि कुछ हमें मिलेगा उससे। नहीं हुआ, टाइम पास होता गया, सरकार बनती गई, और जो अगर शुरू में टाइमली एक्शन या जजमेंट आता तो शायद वो चेक हो सकती थी, जो भी रॉन्ग डूइंग थी वो हो नहीं पाई। इसके बाद हरियाणा इलेक्शन में हम फिर से डिसअपॉइंटेड हुए, और अब हालत ये है कि बिहार का इलेक्शन हो चुका है, रिजल्ट अभी आया नहीं है, लेकिन हमें एक डिप्रेशन की भावना आ चुकी है कि फेयर नहीं रिजल्ट आने वाला है। दूसरी चीज मैं ये कहना चाहती हूँ कि अब वो स्थिति है कि सवाल पूछने वाली स्थिति नहीं है, पानी सर से ऊपर जा रहा है। अब कुछ समय ही हम अपनी सांस रोक के सरवाइव कर रहे हैं। तो सुनील मेमोरियल ट्रस्ट में जब मैं आती हूँ, सुनील जी एकेडमिशियन नहीं थे, एकेडमिशियन उन्होंने छोड़ दिया था जानबूझ के, और वो एक्टिविस्ट बने थे। तो हम चाहते हैं कि सुनील मेमोरियल ट्रस्ट के कोई भी ट्रस्टी मुझे ये बताएं कि इस स्थिति में वो एक्शन रूप में क्या करना चाहते हैं, और अब क्या सोल्यूशन है हमारे जैसे लोगों के पास जो कि डिमोरलाइज्ड हैं, डिसइल्यूजन्ड हैं।
Can we take more questions? Maybe one or two more. पहले सर उनका।
Hello sir, hello sir ma'am, thank you for this enlightening discussion. I'm a student of politics at JNU doing PhD. So there is a thing going on China plus one at global stage, and India is being put in three major register that there is democracy. You see, we are alternative to China's model of development. There is demand and there is demography. So democracy essentially, Pratap Bhanu Mehta also talks about that democracy is essentially about legitimacy. And legitimacy in sense of performance legitimacy, there is a processes like election commission doing free and fair election, and there is also about delivery, So when we see the processes being, tweaked to, and there is also desire when they are putting themselves against the China model, but there is a desire from the party to become a party state like a China. At least they are trying. And party state becoming, the centerpiece where contradictions need to be resolved. Not through the institutions like Election Commission, which is actually Election Commission of India, not Election Commission for government. So that was my just thought. Can we look at through the lens of rising party state? And if not in a future, if we become a party society, one party, having the view of good life, the view of possibilities. So thank you. One question.
हेलो, अशोक जी, 2-3 सवाल थे। एक तो ये है कि अभी कुछ दिनों पहले हमारे मुख्य चुनाव आयुक्त ने प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करके बताया था, कहा कि आपका वोट 2 जगह हो सकता है, लेकिन आप 2 जगह वोट नहीं दे सकते हैं। अभी बिहार के चुनाव में एक्स एमपी राकेश कुमार सिन्हा जो दिल्ली में वोट किए थे, अभी बिहार में भी जाके उन्होंने वोट किया है। और इस तरह के दर्जनों मामले आए हैं। जो उत्तराखंड में बीजेपी का प्रवक्ता है, उसने जाके बिहार में वोट किया, उसके पहले उत्तराखंड में किया। ऐसे दर्जनों मामले हैं। तो इसमें क्या कर सकते हैं? एक सांसद दोनों उंगलियां उठा करके दिखा रही है कि हमने 2 वोट दिए हैं, एक उंगली इधर, एक दाएं, एक बाएं। इसमें आप क्या कर सकते हैं? दूसरा ये कि जिस तरह से पिछले 6 महीने पहले जब चुनाव कानून में संशोधन हुआ, चुनाव आयोग को इतना ताकतवर बना दिया गया कि क्या कभी उनको हम रिस्पॉन्सिव या जवाबदेह बना सकते हैं क्या? और एक सवाल और, जब लोकतंत्र की बात हो रही है, लोकतंत्र की हत्या संसद में बैठ के की जा रही है। लोकसभा का उपाध्यक्ष पिछले 6 साल से नहीं चुना गया है, जबकि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के सेक्शन 93 में साफ लिखा हुआ है कि लोकसभा में एक अध्यक्ष होगा, एक उपाध्यक्ष होगा। लेकिन 6 साल बीत गए, आज तक लोकसभा का उपाध्यक्ष नहीं चुना गया। क्या इस संविधान की हत्या नहीं है? जी।
I think the young man there asked a question, very academic. So I thought, since I have cited many books, let me cite one more. And that book is called Is Democracy Devouring Itself? The Rise of the Incompetent Citizen. I think the author is Samim Rosenberg. And what he is trying to say is that the citizens, and again this is probably in the context of the US, but he says it applies almost to all democracies, they don't have the cognitive or emotional capacity to assimilate what a democracy requires. And therefore, democracies will eventually finish because of the incapacity of the citizens. And I think that is something which we need to guard against. As Anjali ji said, it's not a question of losing hope, because it's a continuous struggle. It is not easy to you cannot be happy just having a right. You have to first have an understanding of your right. You should have the ability to articulate your right. You should have the courage to fight for your right. And you should have the equanimity to pay the price that a struggle involves. So I think all these things have to be internalized if we want that the democracy should prosper. After all, I think Jawaharlal Nehru, and this conference cannot conclude without a mention of Jawaharlal Nehru. He said democracy is a way of life. And it requires self-discipline, as well as it requires a little bit of equality, economic equality, and it requires awareness of the citizens. So there are all these factors, and at the end of it, I think we cannot forget what Churchill said, that democracy is the worst form of government, except all those that have been tried before it.
I think we are out of time. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. There were at least 4 more questions, but we have really run out of time and people have come from really far away.